Little girl offers Clint Eastwood her sandwich, but she was unprepared for the aftermath of her kind gesture. What happened next will melt your heart. Before continuing this amazing story, don't forget to like and subscribe the channel for daily notification of upcoming stories. Also, let us know where are you watching from. Let's begin the story. Lily was the kind of child who noticed things others didn't. While most kids ran around playing games, Lily would stop to watch the way a bird fluffed its feathers or how a stray cat twitched its tail. She had a habit of paying attention to the small things, especially when someone looked sad. At just 6 years old, she already understood that kindness could make a difference. Lily lived in a small apartment with her mother, Sarah. Life wasn't always easy, but they made the best of what they had. Sarah worked 2 jobs, mornings at the local deli and evenings cleaning offices. She did everything she could to provide for her daughter. Money was tight, but she never let Lily feel it. Instead, she taught her that even when they had little, they could still give. One afternoon, as the cool autumn air settled over their small town, Lily and her mother stopped by the deli. Sarah had just finished her shift, her apron still dusted with flour. "Can I get a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, Mom?" Lily asked, bouncing on her toes. Sarah smiled and nodded. "Of course, sweetheart." She placed the order while grabbing herself a cup of coffee. Lily loved this little routine, getting her favorite snack and spending time with her mom before she had to leave for her evening job. It was their special moment, a small pocket of warmth in their busy lives. As they stepped out of the deli, Lily's eyes drifted toward the small park across the street. The leaves on the trees had turned golden, fluttering down to the ground like tiny pieces of the sun. "Mom, can we sit in the park for a bit?" she asked, tilting her head up to her mother. Sarah hesitated, glancing at her watch. She had work soon, but the way Lily looked at her, hopeful and excited, made her sigh and smile. "All right, but just for a little while." Lily grinned and took off ahead, skipping toward the park's entrance. Sarah followed, taking a deep breath of the crisp autumn air. The park was mostly empty, just a few people strolling or sitting on benches. Then, Lily stopped. A man sat alone on a weathered bench beneath a tall oak tree. He wore a wide-brimmed hat and a thick scarf wrapped around his neck, but his coat looked thin against the cold. His shoulders were slightly hunched, his hands folded in his lap. Even from a distance, Lily could see something in the way he sat, something heavy, like he was carrying a weight no one else could see. "Mom," Lily whispered, tugging at Sarah's sleeve. "That man looks sad." Sarah followed her daughter's gaze. She saw the man, his rugged face partially hidden under the hat's shadow. He didn't look like the others in the park. He wasn't reading a newspaper or enjoying the scenery. He just sat there, staring at the ground. "Maybe he's just resting, sweetheart," Sarah said gently. Lily frowned, unconvinced. "Can I give him my sandwich?" Sarah hesitated. They didn't have extra money, and she knew how much Lily loved her peanut butter and jelly. But then she looked at her daughter's face, so full of determination, and she couldn't say no. She nodded. "Go ahead, sweetheart, but be polite." Lily didn't wait. Clutching her sandwich, she walked toward the man, her small feet crunching over fallen leaves. She had no idea she was about to change a legend's life. Clint Eastwood sat motionless on the old park bench, staring at the ground. He wasn't really looking at anything, just lost in thought. The world had changed so much, and after all these years in Hollywood, he wasn't sure where he fit anymore. Fame had given him everything, yet here he was, sitting alone in a quiet town, unnoticed, forgotten. He didn't mind, really. He had chosen to step away from the spotlight. But some days, the silence felt heavier than he expected. Then, a small shadow appeared in front of him. He blinked and looked up, surprised to see a little girl standing there. She couldn't have been more than 6 years old. She had bright eyes, a curious expression, and clutched a peanut butter and jelly sandwich in her tiny hands. "Hi," she said cheerfully. Clint hesitated. He wasn't used to kids walking up to him like this. He glanced around, wondering if her parents were nearby. "Hello?" he finally said, his deep, gravelly voice softer than usual. The girl held out the sandwich. "I brought this for you." Clint frowned slightly. "For me?" She nodded. "You looked sad." He stared at her, caught off guard. In all his years, through war films, westerns, directing, and winning awards, he had never experienced something like this. A child, completely unaware of who he was, simply offering him food because she thought he needed it. He hesitated, but there was something so genuine about her gesture that he couldn't refuse. Slowly, he reached out and took the sandwich. "Thank you," he said, his voice thick with emotion. The little girl beamed. "You're welcome. My name's Lily." Clint gave a small nod. "Nice to meet you, Lily." She stood there for a moment watching him. "Are you gonna eat it?" A chuckle rumbled in Clint's chest. It had been a long time since he'd laughed at something so simple. "I suppose I should," he said. He unwrapped the sandwich and took a small bite. The taste of peanut butter and jelly, something he hadn't had in years, felt oddly comforting. Lily grinned, satisfied. "See? It's good." Clint chewed slowly, nodding. "Yeah, it is." Just then, a voice called from a distance. "Lily!" They both turned to see a woman walking toward them. She looked worried at first, but when she saw Clint holding the sandwich, she relaxed. "That's my mom," Lily said. "I gotta go." Clint nodded again, still holding the sandwich in his weathered hands. Before she ran off, Lily gave him one last smile. "Bye, mister." And just like that, she was gone, skipping back to her mother. Clint sat there for a long time, staring at the sandwich, feeling something stir inside him, something he hadn't felt in years. Hope. Later that evening, Sarah sat on the couch, flipping through a magazine while Lily played with her dolls on the floor. The house was small but cozy, filled with the warmth of a loving home. "Mom?" Lily suddenly asked, looking up. "Yes, sweetheart?" "That man at the park. He was nice," Sarah smiled. "Was he?" Lily nodded. "Yeah." "He looked sad. But when I gave him my sandwich, he smiled. A real smile." Sarah glanced at her daughter, touched by her innocence. Lily had always been that way, kind to everyone, never asking for anything in return. "I think you made his day," Sarah said, reaching over to ruffle Lily's hair. Just then, something in the magazine caught Sarah's eye. She sat up straighter, staring at a black and white photo. It was a familiar face, deep wrinkles, piercing eyes, a strong, weathered look. Her heart skipped a beat. "Oh my God," she whispered. Lily looked up, curious. "What, Mommy?" Sarah held up the magazine, pointing to the picture. "Lily, the man you gave your sandwich to. Do you recognize him?" Lily squinted at the page. "That's him. That's the man from the park." Sarah's mouth fell open. "Lily, that's Clint Eastwood." Lily blinked. "Who?" Sarah couldn't believe it. The legendary actor and director, Clint Eastwood, had been sitting alone in their small-town park, and her daughter had unknowingly handed him a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. "He's a very famous man," Sarah explained. "He's been in movies for years, big, important movies. People all over the world know who he is." Lily tilted her head. "Then why was he sitting by himself?" Sarah didn't have an answer. She looked back at the picture, thinking about the man they had seen that afternoon. He hadn't looked like a movie star. He had looked tired, maybe even lonely. Lily's voice was soft. "Even famous people get sad, don't they?" Sarah's heart clenched. Yes, baby. They do. Lily nodded, as if she understood something beyond her years. Well, I'm glad I gave him my sandwich. Sarah smiled and pulled Lily into her arms. Me too, sweetheart. Me too. Little did they know, at that very moment, Clint Eastwood sat in his hotel room, staring at the half-eaten sandwich on the table. He had more money than he could ever spend. He had trophies, awards, and recognition. But none of that had mattered today. What had mattered was a 6-year-old girl who had seen him. Not as a celebrity, but as a person. And that, Clint realized, was something he hadn't felt in a long time. Clint Eastwood sat in his quiet hotel room staring at the peanut butter and jelly sandwich on the table. It was just a simple sandwich, something a child might carry in their lunchbox. But today, it meant more to him than anything else in the world. He ran a hand through his silver hair, thinking about the little girl in the park. Lily. He hadn't even asked for her name, but her kindness had left an imprint on him. For years he had lived in the spotlight, admired by millions. He had played the tough guy, the hero, the legend. But underneath it all, he was just a man. An aging man who had seen too much of life's highs and lows. Lately, it had been more of the lows. Hollywood wasn't the same anymore. The business had changed, the people had changed. And no matter how successful he had been, he couldn't escape the feeling of loneliness that followed him everywhere. But today, for the first time in a long while, someone had looked at him, not as Clint Eastwood, the movie star, but as a human being. A little girl had seen a lonely man and offered him the only thing she had, a sandwich. Clint sighed, leaning back in his chair. He had spent his entire career telling stories, but this moment, this real, unscripted moment, was one he would never forget. He knew he couldn't let it end there. Reaching for his phone, he scrolled through his contacts and dialed a number. "Hey, Mike," he said when his assistant picked up. "I need a favor." "Sure, Clint. What's up?" "I need to find someone. A little girl and her mother." There was a pause on the other end. Okay. Where?" "They live here in town. The girl's name is Lily. She's about 6 years old. I met her in the park today." His assistant hesitated. "All right. What's the story?" Clint chuckled. "Just an old man wanting to say thank you." After hanging up, he sat back and smiled to himself. For the first time in a long time, he felt like he had something meaningful to do. It wasn't about the movies, the awards, or the fame. It was about a little girl who had reminded him of something he had almost forgotten: the power of kindness. A week had passed since the day in the park, and life went on as usual for Lily and her mother, Sarah. The little girl had nearly forgotten about the encounter, but Sarah hadn't. She had seen the man's face before, and when she finally connected the dots, realizing that the lonely man in the park was Clint Eastwood, she was stunned. But she didn't tell Lily. To her, it didn't matter that he was a famous actor. What mattered was that her daughter had shown kindness to someone who needed it. That evening, Sarah was in the kitchen preparing dinner when she heard a knock at the door. "Lily, can you see who it is?" she called. Lily ran to the door and pulled it open. Standing on their small porch, holding a basket of chocolates and a bouquet of fresh flowers, was Clint Eastwood. Lily's eyes widened. "Oh, it's you!" Sarah wiped her hands on a towel and hurried to the door. Sometimes, we get so caught up in life that we forget how powerful kindness can be. Sarah smiled, touched by the stranger's words. "That's very kind of you to say." The woman glanced at Lily, who was happily skipping beside her mother. "You have a very special daughter." Sarah knew that already, but hearing it from someone else made her heart swell with pride. That evening, as they sat down for dinner, Lily looked up at her mother. "Mama?" "Yes, sweetheart?" "Do you think Clint Eastwood is still sad?" Sarah smiled. "I don't think so, honey. I think you reminded him that people care. Lily grinned. Good, because everybody deserves to be happy. Sarah reached across the table and squeezed her daughter's hand. Yes, they do. That night, as Sarah tucked Lily into bed, she thought about everything that had happened. A peanut butter and jelly sandwich, a moment of kindness, a chance encounter with a Hollywood legend. And yet, it wasn't about fame or money. It was about something much bigger, the simple but powerful truth that small acts of kindness could change lives. As Lily drifted off to sleep, Sarah whispered, "Good night, my little angel." Lily mumbled sleepily, "Good night, Mama." Outside, the world continued as usual, but in one little home, in one quiet town, kindness had created something magical, a story that would live on, reminding people everywhere that even the smallest gestures could leave the biggest impact. And somewhere, perhaps in another town, or maybe in Hollywood, Clint Eastwood was smiling, carrying that lesson with him, just as Sarah and Lily would carry it forever. Guys, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this story. Let us know about your thoughts in the comment section. Also subscribe the channel for daily stories notification.